Husqvarna almost built the perfect adventure bike. They had the hype, the fan base, the potential. They took that all in, added some Scandinavian flair, and came out with a big ball of meh.
A bike that didn't really bring anything new to the table other than a pretty face. So, what went wrong?
In order to find out, we need to really go into Husqvarna. Literally. Yes, I flew all the way to Sweden for this stupid joke.
It all started at EICMA back in 2019. The Swedes showed off this futuristic yet retro-inspired adventure bike concept. It had striking lines, huge potential, and people loved it. Huskies weren't known for making adventure bikes. In fact, this was their first attempt.
But since they had all their pedigree rooted in dirt bikes, people were confident that they can pull something off. Something amazing. This blind trust was rooted in history, and so what better way to find it out than to go where everything started. And yes, I did try renting a Husqvarna motorcycle. Bike rental companies aren't that popular in Sweden, so yeah, this had to do.
It all started with muskets. Slow, deliberate, yet effective during those times. And they made some pretty precise ones. This precision carried over the years all the way to the early 1900s when they first got into the motorcycle business. Later on, they started taking racing seriously, managing their first Dakar class win in 1986. That was followed by a bunch of championships in motocross, hard enduro, really name an off-road discipline, and Husqvarna was up there at one point or another. Safe to say, their reputation was strong, and so with that came high expectations.
Yet they had another ace up their sleeves. And no, it's not IKEA, but it's a thing that two manufacturing giants have in common.
Scandinavian design, generally regarded as high quality, futuristic, while keeping in touch with its own heritage. Minimalist yet functional. It's a symphony of words that should delight any onlooker. And well, with the grand reveal, people were stunned.
Just as I was stunned finding out you didn't subscribe to the channel yet. Thanks. The final prototype left people's jaws down on the floor.
It was a radical concept, one that took inspiration from classic motorcycles, from icons like the KTM 950 Adventure, from rallying and racing, from the simplicity of a northern life.
And so, the Norden was born. And yet, as much hype as it generated when the concept got unveiled, the final announcement left everyone with a sour taste in their mouth.
Because you see, for some reason we were expecting a radical new concept, one that could take over the world. And what we got was a slightly tweaked version of bold new graphics.
The reality was, this was not the Husky we wanted. This was a KTM 890 Adventure dressed up in some pretty clothing. And it didn't even match the Austrian R version in terms of suspension and off-road capability. It stood right between the S and R versions of the 890, while costing a bit more than the base model. You could almost say it was a ripoff in some sense. Look, the Norden and subsequently the KTM that it's based on, they're not bad bikes. Not at all, quite the opposite.
It's just that people expected something different. After all those years, we weren't waiting for a reskinned KTM, we were waiting for a revolution. And we never got it.
Just like a communist system, throwing out a dictator and replacing him with another dude from the same party is, well, pretty pointless. Different face, but the essence stays the same.
And with that, the Husky suffered all of the downsides of the 890. The reliability concerns, the price. People thought it was too complicated, too many electronics, too heavy even for some proper off-road adventures.
If we take an objective look back, the Norden wasn't a failure. It still sells well and is a really good motorcycle. The problem was the hype, our own expectations, the hopes and dreams that we all set for this. I mean, why can't manufacturers just listen to the community? Listen to what we want? Actually, what if they did? I did a little poll on my audience to set a starting point, to see what do people envision as a base for their ultimate ADV motorcycle. And well, it was pretty clear. Kind of.
Most of you agreed that big GS-like bikes are just too much, so something like a Husqvarna 701 sounds ideal. But then at 20% each, you guys also love your middleweights and lightweights like the CRF 300. There is some stuff to learn here, sure, but maybe not enough.
But look, I hear you. My sample size must be really small and niche, and yeah, it is. Slightly over 100 people voted in this poll, and while I am grateful for every one of them, it's simply too small of a sample size for it to matter. Luckily, the guys at ADV Rider did something similar about 4 years ago, and their audience is way bigger. And most importantly, it's varied.
And well, it turns out that the ideal motorcycle weighs somewhere between 140 and 170 kilograms, should have an engine size of roughly 700cc, and most people really want a twin. It turns out we also want no less than 22 liters of fuel capacity, and really important, spoked wheels with tubeless tires.
To all manufacturers out there, you have the data now. How hard could it be to build that? In fact, what if we try to design this?
We'll take a Norden as a baseline for design. The fuel pod concept also really helps with weight distribution, and we could add another smaller fuel tank at the rear, rally bike style. This way all the weight is down low and our range should satisfy the requirements. Add some big Brembo brakes instead of tubeless spoked wheels. We'll go with an off-road configuration of a 21-inch front wheel.
You can beat a large wheel to submission on the pavement, but it's hard to do it the other way around for off-road.
Couple that with top-of-the-line suspension. Here it's a bit hard since we need this to be really agile on the street, but also soft and compliant enough for rougher off-roading. For engine, a 650cc parallel twin should really satisfy our needs with roughly 100 horsepower.
Add in a cross-brain configuration and we have the sound department pretty well sorted out too.
I want electronics, but also I want to be able to disable them completely, Aprilia style. This way purists should be satisfied too, while also helping the beginners out there.
And finally, the brand. It has to be from a reputable brand like Yamaha, KTM, BMW, and so on. Partly because we're all suckers for good marketing, but most importantly, we need this in order to have a strong dealer network and ease of access to spare parts. And yeah, that's kind of it. The end product looks a bit like this. Yeah, some of you probably saw that coming already. When trying to satisfy everyone, you end up with something that's extremely expensive. All the bits above required to make the bike suit our criteria would send the price flying through the roof. And even then, even if in an ideal world money was no problem, this motorcycle still couldn't exist.
A Yamaha CP2 engine weighs roughly 52 kilograms. The exhaust another 6 kilos, we need at least 24 kilos for the fuel tanks, another 5 or so for fluids, another 10 for the wheels, 15 for suspension. That leaves us with just 25 kilograms to build the rest of the bike in order to hit our ideal target weight.
That's 25 kilos for a frame, subframe, brake discs, wiring, dashboard, fairings, basically everything. At this point we would need to resort to super exotic materials like carbon fiber and titanium, and that would drive the price even higher. And even then, this unicorn motorcycle still is impossible.
Like a fully fueled KTM 450 rally replica, which has an even smaller engine and is more bare bones than our ideal, even that, while using exotic materials, starts at 172 kilos, which is already over our upper limit.
I think at the end of the day, we will never be fully satisfied. Sure, some people might be pleased with a Cove 450.
But a lot of others won't. And some people desperately want KTM to build a twin 500cc adventure, but that still won't please most people. My point is, the adventure bike community is big, but most importantly, It's wide. It ranges from street tourers to hardcore adventurers.
And as long as we'll put everyone in the same bucket, we will never find the ideal bike. And that's okay. That's reality. Really, going back to Husqvarna with the Norden, they didn't live up to the hype. It was a similar situation to Yamaha's own T7, in a way, maybe to a lesser extent, but I don't think any of these manufacturers ever could fully live up to the hype. I think they gave their 100%, it's just that we expected 150. And sometimes, what if our expectations are more rooted into our dreams than into actual reality?
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, a subscribe would be super appreciated. Until next time, have a good one.